All right, today we're gabbing with Marjon Carlos, a journalist and the host of Your Favorite Auntie Show podcast. I reached out to her because I saw some great Housewives commentary happening on Threads, and we had a couple replies going back and forth, and I was like, you know what? Let's take this to the mic. So, Marjon, thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. This is like, it feels like I'm fighting my tribe when when I talk to other Bravoholics. So I'm really honored to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
Of course. What are you like a day one Housewives person? Are you somebody who discovered it later? Like, what's your relationship like to it?
I'm a day one. I found RHONY when I
Hmm.
was in grad school. So season one, I was there from the beginning. Um, and I just like moved to the city. So it felt like this way of learning the city and like learning like
Hmm.
the just the social politics of it all. I had watched OC, but it never like hooked me the way that Roni did. And then from there, I just became obsessed. So
Yeah.
I've watched pretty much every franchise, even DC.
I love it. And being sort of in the media journalism world for a while, have you kind of crossed paths with any of the housewives, specifically New York, or like I don't know what's that experience been like for you?
Last year I interviewed Jessel for my podcast, which was
Okay.
like my Andy Cohen moment, and I
Hmm.
felt like a full circle moment. So that
Love.
was really cool. I'm trying to think if anything I haven't really other than that, which I think is kind of crazy. Actually, that's not true. Jenna was on my podcast as well back in like 2021
Oh,
when it was
cool. So before the show.
yeah, it was the IG live show, and our paths had crossed in like the fashion circles. And now I like see her obviously like out and about. Um, but I think that's like
Okay.
the only thing. Yeah.
What about no Rebecca Minkoff run-ins with you?
No, no Rebecca Minkoff
Okay.
running. That's so funny.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're talking about New York, and I feel
Yeah.
like I still have like unresolved feelings from this week's from this week's episode, which like, this pregnancy thing had been teased in the trailer. So like we were sort of primed to be aware of this happening, but like the way that it's played out was just so it made me so upset and and annoyed and like it's what like as Andy said on Watch What Happens Live, like I don't love a prank. Like a prank
Right.
can be all like really just like kind of juvenile and low hanging fruit kind of. But like
Yes.
there are ways to pull it off, right? Like the
Yeah.
Kardashians did it for years on their show and it was like very silly, but like it could result in some like fun TV. It's happened on Housewives over the years. We had the cockroach and the cake or the pavlova earlier this season on New York. But
Yeah.
the difference between all those and this pregnancy thing with Rebecca is that we were in on the joke. We knew it was
Right.
happening. We knew that it wasn't real, and so we could kind of laugh at them not knowing that, but us knowing it. But we weren't in on the joke here. What did you make of how of this whole
I
episode,
see.
which was an entire prank?
I felt like they had no content. They
Yeah.
had nothing to give. And so it's like, yes, give us nothing, So like give us like this weird prank. And I feel like Jeff Lewis also said on that Watch What Happens Live episode, which I thought was really insightful, is like you lose the trust of your audience when you do
Yes.
things like this. And I think that that's how I feel right now. I feel like I'm giving up on a franchise that I'm saying that I've watched, since like 2006 or 2007 or something like that. Um, and it's really sad. It like made me really angry after I watched it. I was like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this? And, it undermines the authenticity of a show, especially when it's based on reality. And we don't need the rubric in the games, but you need you guys to like engage with one another. And so without that, I don't know what I'm watching. It's a lot of aesthetic and no substance.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, and I feel like and the thing is we haven't seen the sort of the conception of this prank. Like it would clearly happen at this lunch with Aaron and Rebecca, but they never showed us that conversation. I guess we're gonna get that next week, probably in a flashback. But like, I don't know. To me, it was born out of, the thing about Sai calling Rebecca boring had just leaked during filming, and Bryn was being a gossip during filming or whatever. And so I feel like it was born out of like Rebecca trying to like push back against that and prove that she's not boring, and like prove that she's really fun. But like, I don't know, I've just seen from Rebecca throughout the season, like I don't know if she really understands like what Housewives entails and like what it kind of demands of you. I feel like she doesn't know how to do this.
No, she doesn't know how to do this at all. And I think that's why she didn't get an apple at the end of the season.
Hmm.
I mean, I was like, you cannot create moments like this. I mean, we see Bryn coaching her in that Hamptons moment, being like, you
Hmm.
should say this. And even that moment was so cringe for me. Um, but her trying to prove that she's not boring actually proves that she's quite boring. And that, it's so funny too, because the Wicked ad had pissed me off.
Oh my, the wicked ad of it all. Let's talk about that.
The Wicked ad had pissed me off first, right? Um, we're getting this disingenuous connection between the girls, and then we get SpawnCon, so we get Bravo pushing us um product in the middle of a season that like has nothing. So it's like, what do you like? Do you think I'm an idiot? Like it really felt like that, you know?
That's I think that's sort of the core feeling for me too, is it's almost insulting to me as a
Yes.
viewer. It's like
Yeah.
we as a viewership have really kind of like grown and gotten pretty intelligent about like how it all works, you know what I mean? And like, I'm willing to give them stuff here and there, but it has to be earned, and
Yeah.
you have to balance it out with the stuff that actually makes it worth watching. And as you said, it's just a lot of aesthetic and no substance. So like, when you try to give us more aesthetic in the Spawn Con and this like silly prank, you you have no grace from us because you haven't
Yeah.
earned it,
I
you
agree.
know?
I completely agree, because I'm just like, so this whole episode was nothing. I've wasted my Tuesday night on nothing. And like, I think we're also wasting a lot of talent that
Yeah.
could be supported and like motivated. Um, but I don't know what's happening, and I don't know why the girls aren't playing with each other.
Who from your just like viewing experience do you feel like either is doing the best job or has the most potential when it comes to really being a housewife and what it demands of you?
I think that Jessel and Aaron have the most potential in like being housewives. I
Hmm.
think that they are in it, and I think that they play into it. I don't think Jessel has anyone to play off of this season. Um, and I think Aaron, she wants to be the anchor real bad. So
Hmm.
I think that she brings a lot, well, she brings more to the camera than the girlies do.
Yeah,
And
it's all relative.
it's all relative, right? Right. And like, you don't really, I mean, financial infidelity, and like obviously her parents being ill, and like now she has a pregnancy, so that's something that she can bring. Jessel's just a fan favorite, because I have to say this to her credit, Jessel is in person, like what we see on camera is who she is in person.
I believe that. I
Yeah.
completely believe that. Yeah, and I feel like, and I agree with you. I think it's Aaron, Jessel, and Sai to me that are the most like in it as like, okay, this is my job. This is the job description of as a housewife. It's either to like be messy or show my life in a really genuine way, or kind of some combo of those things. I feel like my slight issue with Jessel this season is that I feel like she's playing into what she saw the audience loved last year a little bit.
The ditziness of it all.
Yeah, a little bit. And because I feel like part of the
Mhm.
appeal for me of her first season was like it being unintentional, because it seems like it is who she is. And I feel like sometimes we're picking moments, but you know what? It's all relative. So I'm going to give her that, you know?
I'm gonna
Um,
I'm gonna give her that. I think, you know, we need some comedic relief. The only
yes.
thing about Psy is this, and I think that this is like my fundamental issue with the show, is that they cast a lot of content creators, right? So we've cast a lot of women who for a living curate their lives and show a like highlight reel that's very polished and very curated. There's no bad angles, there's no bad
Yeah.
edit. And because of that, they're very aware of the cameras. And I think that I understand like the enthusiasm around size, like resuscitation, like her reputation resuscitation, but like I feel in a lot of ways it's also aware of itself, right? Like she's like, I came off bad. I had a bad edit last season. So I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna be a bit more zen. I'm gonna be a bit more, level-headed. Like when she told Uba pineapple
Yes.
when they were fighting and
Yes.
Uba was going
Good pull.
shit, and she was like pineapple, and I was like, nah, 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 you can't do that. You can, mm-mm. Like you
Hmm.
can't.
Let it go. Let it pop
Yeah,
off.
yeah. You have to let it play itself out, and you can't pull yourself back in and rein it back in. So I feel like she's very aware of herself still, and I feel like all of the girls are very aware of themselves, and that's why there's a lack of vulnerability.
1,000%. I think it's very valid, and it's kind of like my point about Jessel responding to what her first season was. I think that
Okay.
Size, you're right, no, but you're right. Size doing the same
Mhm.
thing. Like she's definitely responding to the fact that she was the audience really didn't like her last season, and yeah, I don't know. I'm just sort of like Uba's hiding the boyfriend. Jenna's hiding the fiance.
Yeah.
Rebecca won't even say the word Scientology on camera, and she like won't even. She's telling us to read a book, and it's like, babe, we all saw Going Clear. We like I've seen the Leah
Yeah.
Remedy show. Like
Yeah.
it's not just like fake news about Scientology. Like it's factually reported, things that they've done over the years as an organization, and like
Yes.
she
Yes.
just can't engage with that. But at the same time, I wish the other women would make her engage with that. It's sort of like on it, to a lesser extent, it's like on Potomac. Like Karen's not engaging with the DUI. The other women are sort of making her engage
They
with this
are.
storyline. It's sort of like
They are.
make Rebecca Minkoff do that. I don't know. But she clearly won't.
No, I agree. I totally agree. She's like, read a book. She won't even say like you're saying, say the word. She compared it to Soul Cycle. I was
Mm.
like, Soul Cycle didn't,
But the thing is, Soul Cycle's not tax exempt, so maybe the Church of Scientology should not be. So
it didn't disappear like the wife of its founder. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
we need to.
yeah,
I guess that was another point of on Tuesday where it's like, do you think I'm an idiot? You know?
yes,
And I think, tell me what you think about this, because I've been really kind of wrestling with why these women get away with so much.
yeah.
And I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are on it as well, because I feel like they're being coddled. And it may be a controversial opinion, but like I feel like Andy is coddling them because he didn't want to scare them off.
I think that's really definitely a valid theory, and like I kind of believe it because I think that like this again, looping back to the prank thing, it makes me kind of question the production of it
Yeah.
all. Like it makes me think like what like that was the complete wrong decision to do that and to frame it that way. You know what I mean? And so like it's like okay, so if you're doing it this way, maybe the production's also thinking the same way these women are, which is like, and they are. I think they are being coddled. I think that like they wanted this kind of clean slate, quote unquote, for New York, and
Yeah.
they wanted it to represent real New York, which like I
Yeah.
think to some extent it does, and to some extent it really does not for me.
Yeah.
And they're not being pushed, and they're not pushing each other. And it feels like I feel like we've on different franchises we've heard an allusion to like a vault, like the sort of group
Mhm.
has certain pieces of information that they won't touch on camera, and that's been violated over the years. But like
Mhm.
I feel like this cast has like a pretty big vault of things that
Yeah.
they won't touch with each other.
Yes.
And ultimately, you need somebody to push them. And whether that's somebody on production, which is, I don't think it's really that's really happening. So I think you're right. They're being coddled. Or it's somebody within the cast. Like throw in a seasoned reality star into this group and see how they deal. You know what I mean? Put
Absolutely.
so yeah, I agree with that. And it's like I think and I think part of that is Bravo really wanting the show to like be a success because they took a really big swing by completely rebooting the franchise.
Yes.
But like the writing feels like it's on the wall a little bit.
I think so too. I think you're absolutely right. And I had always had a theory that Leah McSweeney should have stayed on. I know she's a very highly
No,
contentious housewife.
I thought that for a very long time as well. Before things turned, I thought that.
because I think she would have been a good bridge between the OGs and this new generation that Bravo is trying to court. But like obviously she sued the network, so
Yeah.
that didn't
Yeah,
that didn't
that's too far gone. But I think 3 years ago, though, like that was absolutely something that should have probably happened. I think you're right.
yes. Because I think having them leading them into the forest without any type of guidance, they are struggling. And I think you're right that because of that, they've created a wall of protection around themselves, and which may feel right in the moment, but it doesn't translate on camera. And so we're all feeling like, what is this? You know, and when Bren leaves at 9:45 for a tan in the middle of a friend's birthday party, that's when the producer's supposed to step in and be like, no, you sit your ass down. You're at work.
No, literally, and then Andy is on Watch What Happens Live saying, "I loved that moment," or on his radio show. I heard him say he like
Oh, did
loved
he?
that he thought that was really funny, and it's like I don't know, like Uba's late for everything, Bryn's leaving early. Where's the and
He
that
thought that was great.
and also like it at the lunch with Aaron, Rebecca was like, "Oh my God, last night was crazy," and it was just like them sitting around a table like. At Aaron's tequila party and or mezcal party, and I was just like, they don't know. Like put that next to a clip from the Berkshires and let's show you real crazy. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
my God. Absolutely. I've actually started rewatching old RHONY because I miss it so much. And it's
yeah,
like
it's a void.
it's a it's like a warm bath, you know, that I take when I like feel like the world isn't right, you know.
Yeah.
And the contrast is so stark,
Hmm.
you know.
Is there anything else about New York that you want to get off your chest, or are you all set?
I mean, where do we go from here? I think I have been thinking about this
Yeah,
in light of the Dubai pause. Um, it's would they put it back on pause? Like, who do you think, like, what do we do to get this show back on track? Are we firing people? Because there are bright moments in the
I
season. Like,
agree.
there's like the addition of Raquel. I think she's really an authentic voice, but I don't think she's necessarily like a housewife.
I
Like,
agree.
I'm gonna get in the fray of things, you know, but I do love her and Mel. I think they're really fab. Um, and you know, it's like where do we go? I think I'm really curious about your
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree about Raquel, by the way. I think that she's like when she has a scene and when she's talking on camera, I'm like, I agree with her.
Yeah.
I believe her. You know,
Yes.
I think she's being authentic. I really like Mel's energy, but she has yet to prove that she's willing to like get in the fray in terms of like a group scene. And
Yes.
so I want to see that from her. I hope she has that in her. I'm not going to doubt that until I see it. But like, I agree. They're ultimately, I feel like what's missing is authenticity. And so Raquel and even Jenna Lyons, I think Jenna Lyons is really authentic as a person. I just think that I have issues with some of the like guardrails that she's allowed to have on this
Yes.
show. Um,
Yes.
I think that I've said this before, but I think that Potomac and OC, which are both in great form right now, they both did similar refreshes to the show, which is like
Mhm.
you keep some OGs or quasi OGs. In this case, it's not really applicable because there's no like mid run, like people who have joined sort of halfway through the run. Like this is all new people. So I think
Right.
you keep three of them, four of them, make one of them a friend, and then you bring on 3 to 4 new people. And I think some of those people either have to be established reality stars from like
Mm.
other shows or people who have proven that they can like do this like to the
Right.
highest of their ability and like
Yeah.
really as we were talking about earlier, be that person who pushes things forward and mixes
Yeah.
it up and make sure that a dinner isn't some snooze fest, but a dinner is actually the sort of stadium for this argument, for an argument that needs to happen or something to be figured out that these women avoid. So
Absolutely.
I don't know. The people listen to my show are probably tired of hearing about this, but I do think that like there are people on Summer House who like are eventually gonna have to leave that show, and like they live in New York and they're pretty good at reality TV.
I see
So
what you're
I'm
saying.
like, if you put one or two of them in, that could be a solution. Or does a housewife from another city move over here? And like, do you bring back I think I feel like. I mean, obviously my first choice would be to bring some OGs back, but
Mhm.
I just don't, I feel like the network has like really like put a stake in the
Yes.
ground, and I
Yes.
just don't realistically, I don't see it happening. Would I like it to happen? Absolutely. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to do that because they've been so kind of like, no, this is the way we're going. You know what I mean?
They have been very much that. And that's a very interesting concept around Summer House. I think are you of the camp that like Paige DeSorbo might be a good
I think Paige and
over?
Lindsay. I had
Oof.
yeah, I think that or I just had Ira Madison on the show, and he was saying how like what's good about that duo is that they sort of have this built-in frenemy dynamic already. Like they have
Yes.
mostly been adversaries on that show for like 5 years, and
Mhm.
that's built in
Right.
dynamic and
Right, right, right.
relationship, and like they've
Right.
proven that they are willing to move forward with one another even after saying really mean to really mean things to one another. And so that's just an idea that it's sort of like
Right.
that's also another issue with the show is that there's no established relationships. They're all new coworkers. So
I completely agree. I feel like I don't know if I think what's missing obviously is some through line, right? And I think the through line is that they're all like rich, women in the
yeah,
city, but that's not enough. And they probably saw each other at a party or something, but they're like Luann and Ramona and Sonia were hanging heavy,
totally off
like
camera too.
and Dorinda on the Upper East Side for years prior to like getting on the show. So they had a lot of history, and you don't have that with these girls. I can't hold that against them necessarily, but you do question it. And I think it does make a real big impact. I think, you know, I'm really curious also about Bryn and just the issue
Yeah,
of favoritism and what girls get away with what, because I think I'm shocked to hear it that Andy thought that Bryn leaving for tanning was a cute move. And now I'm like, I just think you like her. And he has said previously that she's the future of Housewives. He said that last season in an interview. And I just don't see it. But and now I'm just like, but maybe this is the direction that they're headed down, and like there's nothing that's gonna kind of derail.
I know. I know. It's like I did see a lot in Bryn this her first season. I thought
I
that
did too.
she
Yeah.
had this star power. There was something to latch onto in her. She was sort of an audience surrogate at some points, but now it's like all become this sort of caricature. So that's why I
Yes.
agree. Like if the tanning thing had happened in isolation and we weren't getting like flirty, campy, what like attempting to be campy vibes from her
Yeah.
at all times, on 100 at all times, then
Yes.
it becomes fun little moments that happen here and there. But like
Yeah.
it's that's all we're getting. And so yeah, I don't know. The last thing I'll say is like the other idea, if they do, if they can be convinced to bring the OGs back, you can make a totally new version of a Real Housewives franchise, which is like an
Mhm.
extremely meta situation where it's like these women basically like flopped as a cast overall. Keep some of them, bring some of the OGs back, and it's sort of like an OG versus newbies like situation because the OGs have some feelings about this whole thing. The
Oh,
group chat's going off.
I'm sure they do. I mean, I was seeing Bethany on TikTok the other day, and she was like, two gay men have called me today and told me that show is horrible. It's unwatchable. And I was just like, yeah, you're probably getting so many texts and so many messages this week because
Mm-hmm.
this is not good. And I
No.
mean, that could be an interesting concept of like OGs versus newbies, like duking it out and trying to build some type of bridge.
You know?
No, I think that could be interesting. And I think also, but I think to your end of like, there's got to be someone who knows what they're doing. I think that's why
Well,
Dubai really flopped, even though Caroline Stanberry was clearly like an anchor. It didn't have a lot of, I don't know if it had a lot of authenticity, and I don't think they had a lot of guidance. I don't think they knew
I
what to
agree.
do all the time,
I totally
you
agree with
know?
that. So let's go to a group of women who do know what they're doing. Okay. We're 5 seasons in on Salt Lake City, and
Oh,
they just continue to just prove that they know what it takes to be a housewife in sort of this more modern age of the franchises, which does require a lot of changing of your dynamics and conflict resolution, and then reigniting that conflict and all the above. So we're finishing out this trip to Palm Springs, right? And I feel like, to me, the thing that's most intriguing to me, honestly, from this episode and sort of what we saw in this mid-season trailer is like we're all of a sudden pivoting when it comes to Todd and Bronwyn. We're all of a
We
sudden like, oh,
are.
we're kind of like all of a sudden opening up this dynamic and this relationship to be examined.
Hmm.
And they're really breadcrumbing us with some of this stuff. It's
Hmm.
him not kissing her when they're about to go out for the anniversary dinner when she went in for the kiss and he didn't kiss her. It's her saying, "I really appreciate everything you do for me," or "I do have a lot for you." And he was like, "Mm-hmm," doesn't say anything back. He's kind of,
Yeah.
and obviously a big component of this is probably like he's in over his head when it comes to filming and he like hates the show.
Yeah.
But it's still, there's still a lot there to be examined. What are you making of some of this, the sort of beginnings of this, the group talking about Todd and Brahman's relationship?
I completely agree with you. And there was this big shift on last night's episode, because I still think Bronwyn's a star. And
I agree.
I think it's really refreshing for her to be on here. And then I was looking at her relationship with Todd last week, and when he would like defended her and was like, you to Lisa, and was like, you can't be pulling this shit on my anniversary trip. I kind of get that. It's like
Yeah.
you booked a private jet at a mansion in the middle of Palm, where were they? Palm Beach?
Palm Springs.
Palm Springs. And and then you got like an F1, like, you know,
Race situation.
yeah, the situation. And then like, I mean, he really went all out for this, right? Like you're really getting like the whole spiel. So I mean, I understand where Todd is coming from, where he's really put a lot of money and invested in a lot of time into this. So I would be pissed too. He bought his wife a $4 million necklace. He's mad. He's really mad. He's an older man.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that. I really do. But I also do see there being an imbalance in their relationship. What was it? It was a friction. It was,
A tension or a friction. Yes.
yes.
Yes. Mhm. Meredith
I,
called that out. Yes.
yes. She was like, I see a slight tension. And I was like, yeah, I see that too. Because they were not affectionate towards one another. And to fight on your anniversary is not the thing that you want to do. It's like, it's not romantic. It's not fun. And who are these people? I do think Todd is probably a very smart guy, and I don't think he thinks that these people are necessarily on his level. I don't.
I think
I get
I
that
think
vibe.
you're right, and I think Brahman kind of thinks that too. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
for sure, for
Right,
sure.
but she's obviously willing to play more ball because this is her job. But um, I just, yeah, I thought that it's like I appreciate and I understand him shutting down the Gwen conversation at the dinner,
Yes.
about the daughter. I do think Angie sort of innocently brought that up. I don't think she was trying to be like a bad person by doing that. But I also think it's just the way he did it. You know what I mean? It's like he's very stern, and it's kind of like
Very.
it just. I like that we're seeing a more complicated version of this relationship, because I also think that Bronwyn has been kind of just like universally like across the board, like check, 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 check. And it's sort of like, where's the the messiness? And
Yes.
I'm glad that we're getting some of that, because I don't know, I think it complicates her as a figure in a good way.
No, absolutely. I think my dog just came in, sorry. But
All
I think
good. All good.
I'm like, I'm really sorry for all the background noise. But I agree with you. I think it does help make her flesh her out, because I've always worried about people or housewives on this show who are, I would say, classically intelligent, like
Hmm.
book smart. I've worried about them because I don't think they necessarily read. I don't think
Got
they,
it.
I think that they kind of flail a little bit, because there's a value system on the housewives that doesn't exist in other parts of the world. I think women are impressed by, how many cars you have, how big your house is, what your husband does. I mean, you die, things like that. Whereas, and I think Brahman's world, it's like, how smart are you? Can you keep up in a conversation? Things like that. So I am really surprised by the fact that she can keep up with these ladies. She's doing very well. And there are levels to her. There's layers to her. She's a bit of a kook, and she might be in a relationship that, like any relationship, is not perfect.
Of course.
Um, and she's with an older man. There's a 26-year age difference. Like, he may not want to hang out with these people,
Hmm.
and but I do think there's an issue of like giving away too much power when you're a woman to a man who's very, very rich. And that is, I think that's what causes the concern.
I think that's really well said. And I think that the last thing about Bronwyn that I sort of have my eye on it a little bit is just sort of like I do feel like sometimes, and maybe it's because like you said, there's like this like really there's this level of book smartness that like I don't know, but the way that she can kind of handle herself in a conversation, I think sometimes comes across a little bit like kindergarten teacher like a little
Yes,
bit
I
like,
agree. I
and
agree.
I think that like
Condescending.
yes, totally, and like I think you're right that like there's a different way of operating in Housewives than real life, and I think if she does that enough, it actually I don't think people will turn on her, but I think it couldn't be the best if it happens too much. It could be a bad look. I think if it's the tone for me. It's the tone.
It's the tone. It's the tone for me.
It's the tone.
Um, I completely agree with you. I do think, um, sometimes the tone can be really fun and shady, like when she
Of
tells
course.
Brandy, like, honey, we're gonna have to get you a thesaurus. Like, that's really funny. That's like great television.
I agree.
And then other times it's like, um, you know, when she's yelling at Lisa. No, I do think that Lisa calling Heather was a shitty move.
You
I
do
do.
or don't. You
I
do.
do. I
See,
do
I
think that
think
was. What do you
I think
think?
it was a pro Housewives move.
Well, of course it's a pro.
I think that she wanted the reaction out of Bronwyn because Bronwyn has been pretty even keeled and pretty kind of together. I think that she knew that it would activate her. I think that that's sort of why they did it, and I think
Yeah,
Bronwyn sort of played.
absolutely.
I think Bronwyn played into that in a way that maybe Lisa wanted. That's my theory on it, but maybe that's too forward thinking. I don't know, but
No, I think you're right. I think they knew what they were doing. They did know what they were doing. They knew that it was emotionally triggering
yeah.
for you to call someone you're having beef with, who you did not specifically invite on this trip. It's like, bitch, what are you doing?
I listen.
Like,
It was shitty, but also knowingly shady. So I
I love no, and I live for it. Like
yeah.
I live for it, but I also was like, that's a moment that's
Yeah.
going to set her off. That's
Yeah,
gonna
and
set.
it's another check in her column of like probably rightfully so questioning how good of a friend Lisa has been to her. You know what I mean? Like that's obviously like she's making a list and checking it twice, and that was added to the
Absolutely.
list. So yeah,
And I think that's actually really interesting to me because I think Bronwyn genuinely is looking for connection and friendship, and I think that that might be. I don't know if it's naive of her or it's just like kind of green of her because I was like, I don't think any of these women really are like loyal to anything but themselves.
mm,
That's kind of like how this works, but they are a sisterhood, but they are looking out for themselves. So it's interesting for her to kind of like become less naive about that.
totally. And we're sort of watching it happen in real time. I think you're totally
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So the husbands have been getting very involved on Salt Lake. Like this episode was like a lot of apologies or lack of apologies happening between
Yeah.
women and men. So it was like Justin and Lisa, they apologized to one another, which I didn't expect, and I'm glad that happened.
Me too.
Meredith wanted an apology from Sean after she did apologize to him for bringing up the rumors about him last season. He
Yeah.
did not apologize for the comment about the statement, sort of about Brooks, kind of that he made on the podcast because he doesn't think that he did anything wrong. And then
No.
Bronwyn also wants an apology. There's a lot of like apologies or lack
Yes.
thereof being
Yes.
demanded on this season.
Yes.
But particularly with the men and women, how do you feel with the husbands being so apparent right now?
I'm a Nene Leaks girl. It's like I'm. It's like you're acting like a bitch.
Stay out of
You're
women's
acting like
business.
Patricia. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Stay out of women's business. I think that um, it's getting too much.
yeah.
I think it's funny, but I do think it's it's changing the dynamic, and I think then we start getting into like gender dynamics, right? Like
Hmm.
when men yell at women who they don't have any type of intimate relationship with, I think that that's problematic. I mean, even when you have an intimate relationship with them, it's problematic, but I think just generally speaking, that's when we start to lose a little bit of the ground. That's my only note for this season, because
Yeah.
Salt Lake City has been delivering on full cylinders. They know exactly what they're doing. Um, and I think last night when, for instance, Seth called Whitney biatch, Justin, where were you, my guy? Like, you really weren't saying anything. And I
Mm.
was watching it with my partner, and he was like, yo, that's crazy. And I was like, absolutely. Like, why wouldn't you step in then? But you, and I guess maybe he felt a little nervous because he had that back and forth with Lisa, and he had learned his lesson.
Sure.
Um, but I think that's the moment you stand up. That's the moment when you say, hey, like, what are you doing? Don't talk to my wife like that. I think
Yeah.
I think that I look at it from my own life, where it's like I will come home from some event and I will give my partner all the tea. We will talk for 45
The
minutes about,
download.
right? And he knows everybody's name, everybody's, play and everything. But if he got involved, I would be embarrassed. And I think they need to like think of it in that respect. Your man should know all the tea. He should know the allegiances and the loyalties and who's an enemy, but he should not be involved in that way. I think, taking back to RHONY just for a second, Abe is a good, you know,
Totally.
example of that, where he plays, he's having fun, and he like talks to Mel, and he like talks to Jenna, but like about his wife's beef, but he's not gonna like try to get involved in that way.
Right.
That's
Yeah, the husbands aren't at the dinner table with the group, basically. And I think you're right. It's sort of it's having them there so much now. It's unlocking this other element that like I just don't
yes.
even know if they need to be unlocked because again, as you said, like they know what they're doing. They have enough going on between them as a really deep cast of like we don't need to have four or five other people and who are men inserted into this dynamic. And I also think that like what I'm noticing, and this has always been sort of the housewives trope of like your man came from me or your man should stay out of it or whatever. But then when that person's man gets into it to probably defend them usually,
Yes.
then
Yes.
it's then that argument gets nixed, you know? So
I agree.
it almost brings up this level of hypocrisy that's completely understandable. But like they all want to argue that the men shouldn't get into it, but then when their man gets into it,
You're like, he's
it's valid because exactly it's like it's this weird and they kind of all do it, which is
yes.
understandable, you
Yes,
know?
they all do it. I think maybe it's like a rule of the kids, where it's like we leave the kids out of it.
Right.
You
Right.
know? I
Right.
think that that's kind of the husbands. Like, we got to leave the husbands out of this.
Yeah. All right. So I want to quickly touch on Potomac
Sure,
because
sure.
when we were corresponding before our recording, you brought up that you're liking it, but you're missing Candace. So you're clearly you're a Candy girl.
I am.
Are you really feeling her absence this season, or is it just more like I miss her?
I think it's like I miss her, and I'm just trying to get back into it. I think that that's what it is. There's a lot of different dynamics. There's a lot of different energy. Um, I I I will say, oh, it's Sunday. Like, I gotta watch Potomac.
Right.
Whereas there's not as much anticipation. Though when I'm watching it, I'm entertained. I'm loving it. I just feel like there's something that's like keeping me. I think it's too much Mia. I
Mm,
really don't like her. I think she's really a miss for she's declassing the show. I really think she's a miss. She's a pathological liar. And like, I think she does lower the brand in a lot of ways. So I think there's too much of Mia. And maybe that's why I'm also kind of like, I'm hesitating just a little bit.
I think that makes complete sense, and I'm really liking this season. But I think I have a higher tolerance for Mia, but I completely understand the arguments that are made about her, which are like that she does kind of not tell that she does not tell the truth a lot of the time, and she frames things in a really convenient way, and
Yeah.
also like it's it's like her and Jacqueline have this just like really like their history just like kind of makes you like cringe a little bit, you know, and it's just kind of like what what is
You're
this?
so
Like,
diplomatic. You
it,
know that they have a weird, weird
but
relationship.
I don't know how to talk about it because I'm just sort of like, I feel like they don't present it in the most honest way. So I'm just sort of like, what is this?
Didn't did Karen say this that she was like felt like an ex-girlfriend or something like that? Or did
Yeah,
Giselle say it?
I think one of them said that.
Yeah, one of them said that, and I was like, yeah, that's what it is. And I don't know why Jacqueline's here. Like, it's actually very frustrating because I'm like, you're not in any way aspirational. You're not pushing the story along. I don't want to know more about you, and it seems like you're so thirsty for
Yeah.
your time. And
And
I'm
she can't handle the heat either.
no, 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 no. She, which is weird. Actually, I thought she'd buck up a little bit, but she
Me too.
actually kowtowed. So I was not really, I just don't enjoy her on the screen, and she's on a lot.
Hmm. Because
It's
Mia's
very,
on a lot.
who is?
Because Mia's on a lot,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's what doesn't do it for me. Obviously Karen, I'm so defensive of Karen
Me
too.
too. Me too. Me too.
So when the girl,
But she's not completely playing ball with what she needs to play ball with. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, 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 no. But I'm like, leave her alone. And
I
I'm like,
know. There's something about it. There's something about it when it comes to Karen that it's like a different set of standards, kind of, you know?
oh,
She's allowed to tiptoe around it. But the thing is about the thing that I appreciate about this season with her is that like she's basically throwing out all these bombs to distract from her situation. And it's kind of working, but it's also kind of
what
not.
about convictions? I was like, Karen, wow. Like, she's like, I'm gonna be messy for a second because y'all are being messy with me. And um it's incredible. I think I don't know if you made this comment or somebody made this comment where basically it was like they are not aware of the kind of what happened with Shannon Bedore, which is a very similar thing where the audience was very upset with the cast for punching down.
Yeah,
And kicking down their friend when she already was in such a low place. So I don't think these girls know yet that um that type of shade and antics, like we get a little defensive for our girl, especially when they paid their dues, and have carried the show. So it's kind of like you're saying, it's like we give them a bit more grace.
totally. And I think that Karen and Shannon, there was a recent article about this where it kind of compared the two DUIs basically, and
Okay. Oh,
it was
interesting.
sort of like Karen and Shannon's positions on their cast are very different because even though they've both been around for a very long time,
Yes.
Karen is the grand dame. She
Yes.
is on the pedestal, and to get a DUI and to have it sort of knocks her off, but we want to see her sort of climb back to that position. Whereas like Shannon has kind of like, even though she is like one of the longest running people on OC, she is not. That's not that she's not the queen bee of the group. She's not on a
No,
pedestal. She's always sort of
no.
she's always had some sort of struggle happening, honestly, and like that's what I think makes her a great reality star is her willingness
Yes.
to open up about that. But like we're rooting for her, but we almost expect it in a weird way from her. Like the I don't know, it's hard to explain,
Yeah.
but I think that that explains also the different treatment here, I think.
No, I get it because it's like it's a crack in the armor.
Yeah,
It's like I got you, like, and because she's like you're saying this idea of the vault where she keeps things about her relationship with Ray a secret. And I think that's also kind of coming undone a little bit. I think we're seeing that like maybe she's out here with other dudes and like those rumors aren't such necessarily rumors.
mm,
And it's a pile on. I think the girls are clamoring for the top spot, which is she should take as a compliment because it's like you're such a big threat. They really do need to take you on, and they're excited about this moment and this lapse in judgment. Um, but I'm also like, hey, not too hard on my
yeah,
girl.
exactly. Well, that's what I appreciate about her and Giselle's dynamic is because like Giselle is sort of down to share that mantle with Karen. It's sort of
Yes,
like
yes,
they can be the two figureheads of the show, and like I think
yes,
Giselle can laugh off Karen being put on a pedestal because she's known Karen for so long, and she just like
yes.
knows that's how Karen is, and she's not threatened by that because Giselle really knows that ultimately she is the sort of driving force I think behind this show and has been for a very long time. I think. Do you not agree?
I'm not a Giselle fan, but I understand
But
her
okay,
need to
but I
be
want to
on
hear.
this show.
Yeah, but I want to hear sort of your rebuttal to that because for me, I
Yeah.
think that Giselle is sort of the driving force behind the show and has been for a long time. And I think that like she got the memo this season that she had to obviously issue some apologies and being a little lighter and move forward with people. Right, move forward. But like
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that her and Karen sort of as that central dynamic is,
Yes.
and to me, is Potomac in
Yes.
so many
No, I
ways.
think I completely agree. I think that their dynamic is central and so important to the dynamic of the show. I think that Giselle, um, in her overcorrection, which is like I'm gonna overproduce, it for me reads as inauthentic.
Got it.
And that really irritates me. I
Hmm.
understand where you're saying of like she needs to drive the drama forward, but whenever it comes back to her, she gives us nothing. And I
Mm,
feel like that is such a letdown. And by it gives us nothing, I mean to say she does not give us anything beyond the conversation about her children. You were
right.
not going to get anything about who she's dating. I mean Jason, but I feel like he was a pay for play
That was,
rent.
yeah, that was a little, that was inauthentic. Absolutely.
That was very inauthentic. I think they
Yeah.
definitely hooked up, but like I don't think it
Yeah.
was like an actual dating situation. Um, and I think the way that she has come for certain women is
Yeah.
like diabolical. So and while I understand that's necessary for a housewife, it doesn't make me gravitate towards her, although I understand the reason why she's here and why without her, even on that trip to Lake Morgan or
Like,
whatever,
like Norman,
like
like
that's the
Mormon,
thing.
baby.
Like they're declassing the show. I'm like, go to an exotic location. Give
I
me
know.
aspiration. I want to see something beautiful. But when Giselle was not there, shit went off the rails. So
And that's
I
when we got a lot of Mia. That's when we got a lot of Mia. Mia was driving the ship at that point, and it was sort of
yes,
like it was
instigating.
unmanned, I guess. Yeah, it was an unmanned ship until Mia took the wheel for an episode and a half. But I think, yeah,
Yes.
that's a good point. That's a really good point. I hadn't clocked that really, but
She
hmm,
came back and then I think Giselle got things back on track. She was like, Ashley, did you apologize to Kay? Like that's like a mama role. Like, and Ashley's like, yes, I apologize to Kay.
right.
You're like, okay, okay.
But I think I actually really, I think your point about Giselle to me actually reminds me of how I've been thinking about Tamra a little bit, which is like
Oh yeah.
Tamra
Yes.
drives the ship, but like nobody has ever really come for her on the show about like the fact that her daughter doesn't talk to her and like the things that are in her life. Like Tamra basically had no personal storyline this season on OC, and like she drove so much of the action, obviously. And I think that Giselle would actually be really wise to get ahead of it getting to a Tamra level, or maybe it has in some people's minds, but I feel like you're right. We need to see something else now that the girls have gone to college. Now she is the empty nesters. Like what is there? Like what is going on in your life? Get ahead of that actually, and like before the accusations can come that it's gotten like kind of really dire. I think in that regard. You know?
I completely agree. I would love to see her dating. I would love to see her open up that side of her life again. I obviously she got burned and never was the same again. Um, but I think it's desperate to rent people for seasons. We
Mm,
know that. And I think
mm.
you're right. I think she should get ahead of that because Tamara had a really crazy season. I was watching, I'm not an OC girl, but I was
Yeah.
watching and I was like, this woman is losing her damn mind. Like, like she's completely unhinged.
She cannot see above the fray at all. Like she's so in it that like there's no perspective at all.
There's no perspective. And I think
Yeah.
Giselle could get there, though she has really gotten the heat and she's weathered it.
Yeah.
I mean, she's
She's a
she's weathered,
pro.
she's weathered a lot.
Yes.
She's weathered a
Completely.
lot. But yeah, I think this season I am liking Stacy and I'm liking Kay.
Me too.
I
Love
think
them.
both of them, they're totally different women, but I love both of their energy. Stacy is like kind of Barbie-esque and kind of
but quirky AF,
yes, yes.
which I love.
I love it. And I think she knows more than she leads on.
Hmm.
She
I
looked like
agree.
she looked so poised on Watch What Happens Live the other night.
She
I
is honestly in some of those photos. I actually think she resembles Kenya sometimes. I'm like there's
mm,
like in some of the and I don't know if it's like editing maybe in the photos, but like I'm like
I see
she's
it.
gorgeous as a human, and like I'm like I'm like kind of struck
Speechless.
by her. Yeah.
I was struck by she looked like I think it's a beauty pageant poise
Yes,
where she was
totally.
just like this
Yes.
all episode like Andy was loving it, and I think that that's she brings something and
She's
she
the
got
future a little
really,
bit.
I think so, she got down this episode. Give her a little vodka and she's a good time girl. She's not above like a martini, like she wants to have fun. She's kind of dorky, but it's like it works for her, but she's hot, so you're like, whoa, this is a lot of combination. I think Kay is really cool because I think Kay is the type of friend I really want in my corner. She is, like she says, I stand on business.
Hmm.
Um, she's just a Baltimore girl with like who she's like a hood princess, and I really love that. Like she's decked in Chanel. She has the wittiest comebacks. She's not afraid. And she's like, Ashley, try me, try it. And I love it because Ashley has never really been tried in the way that I feel like she should be tried.
I couldn't have said it better myself, and I also think that like it's kind of telling and funny that both of these two kind of standout newbies and Jazzy, I guess too, they don't fuck with Ashley.
No,
They just don't, and like it's kind of funny, like they're like not even they're not going to give her an inch, and
no.
and that creates a really fun OG newbie dynamic. I like that about this season. It's unlocking new stuff, which I really like.
I
So
agree. I think, and Ashley needs to get to work because
I
otherwise
agree.
we don't need her anymore.
Yeah, she's turning into like the messy friend of, that like doesn't really, but like who's there when they really need to like mix it up and throw a bomb in there. But like other than that, she's not really giving enough this season for me right now.
No,
No.
no.
Well, this was so fun.
Yes.
I've kept you for longer than I promised, but
Oh,
we
sorry.
got
I thought it was an hour. Okay,
no,
okay.
no, 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 no. I'll take as much time. But where can people listen to your podcast, read your work, plug all the things before we sign off?
Yeah, yeah. So you can find me at your favorite auntie show and at Marjon_Carlos on Instagram. You can find the podcast on Spotify, wherever uh, podcasts are streamed. I have a Substack, Notes from Auntie's Desk. I go live from time to time about RHONY. I think I'll do it, or Real Housewives. I think I might do it more, but yeah, that's where you can
Yeah.
find. Yeah.
Clearly have the thoughts. Also, a really great Instagram follow. Like I love the pics and all the content that you put up there.
Oh,
So
thank you. I
yes,
love
it's so
your
good. Oh
content.
my
Like you're
God.
in it. You are in it, and I love it.
Arguably two in it, but
Is it too much? No.
oh my God. Marjon, thank you so much. And we can do this again soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I want to gab.